Alright, hello citizens of the Nigerverse. It is Niger here once again. Now, this video is one that I've wanted to do for a bit, for a little while now, and it's been something that's been on my mind, something that's been on my radar for quite some time, and now that I have completed the analysis of the Monday Night Wars, including not just as he announced the Monday Night Wars itself, but now my final analysis, my kind of post analysis, as all those are up on the channel now. If you haven't already, go check those out. And I'm gonna put them all in a kind of compilation style video that should hopefully be out by Friday. But nevertheless, with that being said, I am glad that I waited. Like, in hindsight, I'm glad I waited till I did that before delving into the topic of today's discussion. And so, without further ado, let me ask you all the question: did the Monday Night Wars ruin Vince McMahon? Now, off the bat, a lot of you may be asking yourselves, Nigel, what do you mean by that? The Monday Night Wars were successful. WWF came out on top. Vince McMahon and did a lot of good business during the Monday Night Wars. It turned the ship around. It helped pro wrestling, and it helped WWF. And now WWF slash WWE is now on top, and a lot of that comes down to the attitude and the Monday Night Wars. How could the Monday Night Wars have possibly ruined Vince McMahon? And you know what? That is a very good point. That is a very good question, which is why I feel like this is such an interesting topic to talk about. Now you see why I wanted to talk about this for a while, at least for like a couple years while I've been doing stuff on YouTube. But the reason I asked this question is because a lot of what's happened in the fallout of the Monday Night Wars in the years, decades even, since then, seem to suggest that had there's something going on, some kind of pattern, something to study when it comes to the WWF and Vince McMahon in the wake of the Monday Night Wars. But before we answer that question, let's take it back to 2001 after WCW was bought out by the WWF. The reboot that WCW was supposed to undergo never really happened, and the WWF bought them. Vince McMahon appeared on WCW programming, which I imagine if you were watching back then, obviously I was way too young. I was only an infant, but if you were watching back then, it had to be surreal for Vince McMahon, the owner of the WWF, the chairman of the WWF, to appear on WCW programming. Like, that had to be surreal. Like, this person who you've known for this company on this channel, not this channel, but within this promotion, appearing in his rival's promotion, like, that had to be, and the fact that it was on WF and WCW, they were doing like the simulcast, that had to be very surreal to see. Like, it'd be the equivalent of Triple H appearing on like AEW nowadays. But Vince McMahon and bought out the competition, definitively beat WCW in the Monday Night Wars, or at least the WWF did, and that's something we'll come back to, which is why I worded it that way. But WWF beat WCW in the Monday Night Wars. It's something that WWF has brought up once or twice or 1,000 times, but yeah, so WWF outlived WCW and bought out their competition, and obviously later on they'd acquire ECW as well, although ECW wasn't really a player in the Monday Night Wars, although it was the third of the big three, if not only in quotation marks, when it comes to in-ring stuff. That's more subjective, but when it comes to like I guess more so mainstream in a way. It's kind of weird, but nevertheless, WWF bought out their competition, and so WWF had won essentially the Monday Night War, or or whatever the equivalent is of getting the win there. But nevertheless, Vince McMahon appeared on WCW TV. He would later bastardize WCW through the invasion and that WCW reboot that never really happened in the WWF, and that was kind of it. WWF morphed into WWE, became the top wrestling promotion in North America. There would be other promotions that would spring up in the fallout of the Monday Night War or its ending, and WWF's essential monopoly on the wrestling business. Companies such as CZW, CZW was around for a little bit at this time, but CZW, Ring of Honor, TNA, AEW, many moons later. But yeah, so because of that, because of what happened in the Monday Night Wars, WWF / WWE, he remained at the top, which is where, for the most part, they still remain up until this day. Even and especially as they're going through this kind of renaissance right now when it comes to pro wrestling, and pro wrestling as a whole is kind of going through this renaissance. But nevertheless, I bring that up, and I started the video kind of reflecting on that or bringing that back up because I feel this is where it begins. This is where I think the ruination of Vince McMahon truly begins. And it's my theory, and admittedly, this is very much speculation, and I don't know Vince McMahon personally. I'm not his psychologist, I'm not his therapist, and if he does have those, if he doesn't, it might explain a lot, but if he does have those, I pity them, especially considering some of the crazy stuff Vince McMahon's cooked up, but and I'm mostly talking about Vince McMahon as, as Booker, as having the final say when it comes to what airs on programming and stuff like that. As Vince McMahon the person is a whole other story, and especially with like the documentary coming out on Netflix and everything. Still haven't gotten around to watching it yet, but I definitely want to, and I definitely should, and I most likely will at some point. But the reason I say it's kind of the ruination when it comes to Vince McMahon, and kind of trying to peer into the psyche of Vince McMahon, and I maintain that the Monday Night Wars kind of ruined Vince McMahon, or at least the victory, because I feel that in the aftermath of winning the Monday Night Wars, Vince McMahon kind of put himself on this pedestal. It feels like he looked at what happened, kind of surveyed what had happened, and then said to himself, "Oh, I did it. I beat WCW. I beat my competition. I bought them out. Therefore, what I did worked because I beat WCW. I beat out my competition. I bought out my competition, and it's and I think it's a mentality that carried for several years. Vince McMahon thinking all his ideas are right and thinking that he can essentially do no wrong, even when data says otherwise, even when business says otherwise, even when people are weren't watching as much anymore, or people kind of fell out of love with wrestling, which I feel like every wrestling fan kind of goes through that phase where you're not really into wrestling as much. I had one or two of those phases, but Vince McMahon, and even despite that, even despite people not quite watching as much, even despite a lot of talent frustration and when it comes to creative and everything, even when it comes to even when it comes to some of the most absolutely insane creative decisions, and not in a good way. Think about all the stuff that made it to TV. Not just in the Ruthless Aggression era, but the PG era and stuff afterwards as well. When you think about that, there were a lot of storylines that made it on the air, but there were a lot that were left on the cutting room floor. Lest we forget, at one point, some of the storylines included Shane McMahon and possibly Vince McMahon being the father of Stephanie McMahon's baby. Yes, you heard that correctly. They were potentially going to be the father of Stephanie McMahon's unborn child. And then there was the gimmick where Heidenreich was supposed to be an unfrozen Nazi, wanting revenge from World War II, and Kenzo Suzuki, Uki, he originally having the gimmick of, although this one did make it to air first, that where they kind of scaled it back, like being like a Japanese soldier who wanted revenge for World War II. Now, granted, the Heidenreich one wasn't Vince McMahon's idea. In fact, the guy who came up with it, Vince McMahon fired because he was so appalled. I guess you gotta draw the line somewhere, but yeah, a lot of crazy stuff happened within the Ruthless Aggression era. The Ruthless Aggression era was very weird, but yeah, so a lot of crazy things happen, and not always in a good way. There were a lot of storylines that turned a lot of people away from wrestling, and got WWE in a lot of trouble. Well, even when WWE went PG, a lot of the stuff that was scaled back, a lot of people were unsatisfied with it. And I guess it's kind of damn you, damn you don't, because do you want the crazy stuff or do you want it to be PG? But nevertheless, I say all that to say, even despite all this happening, Vince McMahon stayed stuck in his ways, and a lot of people were wondering why. Why was that the case? Why was Vince McMahon so unwavering, unwilling to relinquish the hold or relinquish the stranglehold on everything? And why didn't Vince McMahon ease up? And I think it does scale back to the Monday Night Wars, where Vince McMahon, and in the wake of the victory, felt that he indeed could do no wrong, that his ideas worked, which is why he beat WCW. This is what I'm thinking is Vince McMahon's psyche. Whether or not that's actually true is up for debate, and debate it has, but Vince McMahon and saying that I beat WCW. Everything I did was right. I did everything correctly because I'm the one who beat WCW. Who WF in reality, it was a combination of things I think that beat WCW. Who for starters, it was kind of the booking when it comes to like Vince Russo and his car crash, like trash TV Jerry Springer style of booking. When it comes to the WF, some of it worked, some of it didn't, but it definitely helped. What matters, there was the stars that were around during the Attitude Era, such as Stone Cold Steve Austin, or The Rock, or The Undertaker, or Kane, or Mick Foley, / Mankind, and all the stars that were D-Generation X, of course, I bring up as well. It was a combination of the stars. It was also a lot of it WCW beating themselves. That was when the NWO got too big and they made a whole lot of head-scratching decisions. And all this combination of factors, I think, is really what led to the ruination of WCW and WF winning. But I think Vince McMahon has that disconnect, like where he thinks it's because he's the one who beat WCW, because he's the one who hit it, because he had the final say, because he put in this and that he's the one and who beat WCW, and thus every idea of his has to be correctly because he's the one who beat WCW. Now, it may sound ludicrous, and it kind of does. You may be like, Nigel, there's no way Vince would be that stubborn, or there's no way that's gotta be it. It's gotta be something else, because there's no way someone could hold on to that for so long. But you'd be surprised. Some people hold on to things for so long. There are plenty of war stories of people who still having beef with people over stuff that happened several years ago. Some related to school, such as like elementary school, middle school, high school, or stuff like that. And you'd be surprised how long people hold on to something. And I think that's what's going on here, or at least this is my theory. I think Vince McMahon holding on to that psyche, holding on to that mindset of, I beat WCW, who I beat WCW, not WF, not necessarily WF, no. I beat WCW. I'm the one who put the nail in the coffin for WCW, who I beat WCW. Therefore, my ideas are correct. And if that is the case, if I'm going somewhere when it comes to this theory, then it would explain why Vince refused to relent, even when and a lot of the data suggested otherwise. Even when people stopped watching, even when WWE was going through its rough patches and everything, with viewership being down, with creative frustrations, with locker room morale being down. I think it all stems back to this. It's because Vince is the one who beat WCW, therefore all his ideas are correct. And if that is the case, then and perhaps it's even better with Triple H taking over. Now, has Triple H been perfect since he's taken over his booking and everything in WWE? Hasn't been perfect? No. Have there been plenty of missteps? Oh yeah, but I think WWE's in a much better spot now. Because Triple H, he's stubborn on plenty of things, but not quite as stubborn or looking more towards the future instead of Vince looking towards the past. And that might be another indicator or another reason why Vince relied so much on nostalgia. There was a point in time where it seemed like, hey, viewership was down. Break the nostalgia glass in case of emergency, essentially, where he brought back the legends, everything. Say, hey, look, all these legends. You remember these legends from back in the day, right? Hey, yeah, tune into the show. You're gonna see these legends. You gotta tune into the show to watch them. And it was only a band-aid solution, and it didn't last. But like kind of staying stuck in that past, kind of staying within his ways. I think it has come back to the Monday Night Wars because Vince still holding on to that victory. Now, granted, was it a big victory for WWE? Sure. For being their biggest competition in WCW. A lot of people still maintain that WCW was WWF's biggest competition, and because they definitely had WWF sweating for a while. Well, WWF was on the downward spiral. WCW was up because like the NWO and everything, and then WWF pivoted toward the Attitude Era, and then the rest is history. But yeah, so is it a big victory? Sure. But that was a long time ago. That was 20 plus years ago. So why still hold on to that? Why not embrace a new way of thinking? That was then, this is now. And you'd be surprised. It's kind of stereotypical for the older generation to hold on to the older mindset, even when it's seemingly outdated. Not all of it is outdated. It in fact, like some of it they have some points on, but it seems like that might be the direction that might go about explaining quite a few things when it comes to that. So now that I kind of put that out there, now I'm gonna turn it over to you guys. Let me know in the comment. And thank you all so much for watching. Of course, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor: like, comment, and subscribe. Share it with your friends and turn on post notifications. Every time I upload a video, so you can see who drops. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Vince McMahon was stuck in his ways? Do you think Vince McMahon was being stubborn because of the Monday Night War? Or do you think it warped his thinking? Let me know in the comments. But nevertheless, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Peace.